This video was sponsored by Warby Parker.
White clouds in the blue.
Creating thousands of jobs, you
Morning starts anew.
I don't ever want to see it again!
What story can we tell with Ethan?
This is far and away the most dangerous thing we've ever attempted.
Everything that I've learned, all the decades of filmmaking I put into the next movie.
The story of the seventh Mission Impossible film starts in 2019 when Tom Cruise and Paramount announce a two-parter installment for the franchise to be produced back-to-back, with summer releases in 2021 and 2022, with Christopher McQuarrie, who had become the series' resident director once again, reprising his role.
I've read that at the end of each Mission Impossible film, Tom has a tradition of turning to you in the final cut, final screening, and saying what?
We can do better. And it's not just Mission Impossible, it's every movie we do. We're never satisfied.
The double bill format was chosen because McQuarrie decided he wanted a much longer story. The Mission Impossible films had been progressively getting longer and more expensive, and in the previous film, Mission Impossible Fallout had been the longest film in the franchise yet. McQuarrie had found it difficult to get it down to even that length because he didn't want to cut too much content. So he suggested to Cruise that they just make a 4-hour movie and cut it in half.
I knew I wanted to expand the cast, and I knew I wanted to give each one of those characters more to do, at which point I said, why are we fighting this? Why are we going to try to jam this into 2 hours? Let's just break it in half and make it 2 movies. It wasn't just that the story was bigger, but that we wanted more emotion in the movie.
Around this time, their blockbuster Top Gun Maverick project was in production, and by the time they were reaching post-production there, they realized that to meet their release ambitions, they needed to dive into Mission Impossible right away. This meant jumping into the shoot with no script, not even the most basic ideas of where the narrative would go. Just find a location, build a stage, and shoot. Sounds like the makings of another great Mission Impossible film, right? As Tom Cruise wrapped up principal filming for Top Gun in June 2019 and they started to sign returning cast members for the movie, they scheduled filming to begin in Venice on February 20th, 2020 under the working title Libra. They were planning on filming an elaborate action sequence during the Carnival Venice, an annual festival known for its elaborate masks, but they were stopped by, well, I think you know.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious new virus,
coronavirus. On Hollywood Boulevard tonight, an eerie silence. Like most of Hollywood, it's gone dark thanks to the coronavirus. And even when production resumes, there are major challenges on the horizon.
On February 24th, Paramount released a statement effectively shutting down production until everyone could get a better handle on how this situation would unfold and let all crew return to their home countries to be with their families. And for probably one of the few moments in the 100+ year history of cinema, almost all production of any kind went dark. And in a sense, this unforeseen pause in production kind of allowed the team to actually think about the story for once. Now, the story originally was going to involve Nicholas Hoult as an unspecified villain. According to Christopher McQuarrie, Hoult had been chosen after auditioning for Tom Cruise's Top Gun Maverick and being passed on, with Cruise feeling he wasn't right for the film, but had great acting talent. After the COVID pandemic happened though, Hoult fell out of the running and they pivoted to introducing a new villain, Gabriel, played by Asai Morales. But Tom Cruise felt that Gabriel wasn't the true villain of the narrative and was part of a plot of a larger scope, leading to the introduction of what was then called the Phantom, a mysterious instigator behind the plot, which later was turned into an AI known as...
Is this
Entity.
McQuarrie explained that the AI theme was effectively a replacement for the typical spy movie antics that he felt weren't as striking for modern audiences. With the anxiety over AI beginning to permeate pop culture, he felt that this could be a thread to tug on that a newer generation could understand. Machines Gone Mad is nothing new, of course. Everyone remembers Skynet, but where it used to be really putting the fiction in science fiction, now it's leaning towards the science part instead. It's not like everyone expects AI to go rogue tomorrow, but fears about its encroachment on human life, of more and more human responsibilities being handed over to algorithms. That's a very real issue that McQuarrie was just a little ahead of the curve on.
in
Emergency transponder code initiated. Operative 207 emergency code 56908 confirmed. Contacting mission control.
Operative 207, we have received your secured emergency transponder code. What seems to be the situation?
I seem to have broken my glasses. I need new ones before the new mission.
Redirecting resources to Oil Baron Salvo Krolowski project. With our sponsor, Warby Parker, we can get those glasses out to you in no time. You know the drill. First, we must scan your face using the virtual try-on tool from warbyparker.com or their app. After finding your pair, they will be shipped to you. Though you'll remember we have certain tools to get these glasses to you faster. Warby Parker glasses start at $95, offer scratch-resistant coatings and free shipping. Perfect for any agent on the go. Now, for those watching you go try out the virtual try-on at home right now, and save 15% when you purchase 2 or more prescription pairs of glasses or sunglasses online or at any of their retail locations. That concludes the emergency transponder code request. Now, get ready for your final mission.
All right, let's get to the mission.
Production would finally start up again in the fall of 2020, after it was announced that the crew had received special permission from the UK that would not require them to take a 2-week quarantine for cast and crew members traveling from other countries. This came after Tom Cruise had talked with Cultural Secretary Oliver Dowden to create this plan that would allow them to begin filming in September 2020.
Today, I'm very pleased to announce that we can go a little bit further. As of this weekend, our artists, musicians and dancers can start performing live outside to outdoor audiences. Normal life is slowly returning.
Shortly after this, Norway would also follow suit and allow the same provisions to the production. But in between this time period, Tom Cruise just couldn't sit still. You know, just getting ready for more stunts. Which was a good sign, right? But maybe after breaking his ankle in Mission Impossible Fallout, Tom Cruise would consider taking a little bit easier this time around. Right? Obviously not. But we'll talk about how they pulled off that stunt later on in this video, so stick around. But first came a lot of practice for the real thing, and Cruise and the team would do that in Oxfordshire, England. They would start off by practicing just jumping motorbikes over and over again. But unfortunately, on one of the test runs, they miscalculated and the bike would land in a pile of pillows that were filled with cardboard. Thankfully, no one was injured in the fire, and Tom Cruise actually missed out on the carnage while he was doing something else equally as safe that day, jumping out of a helicopter, of course. The director of cinematography for this was Fraser Taggart, which is quite honestly a cool story. Taggart does not have a lot of sole credits as a cinematographer or director of photography, but he has tons of experience as a second unit DP and had even worked on Mission Impossible films before, on Rogue Nation, and as the main director of photography for the helicopter sequence in Mission Impossible Fallout. So he's no stranger to directing action sequences. And it's actually a pretty cool promotion from within the franchise, and honestly, he was uniquely qualified to fill the role and certainly knew what to do and expect from Tom Cruise. Though this time around, for the first time in franchise history, Tom Cruise finally gave into the digital revolution. Because of all the crazy stunts and limitations that the film cameras would bring them, Cruise finally conceded that using digital cameras was the best option for this film. And Taggart spoke to this challenge, saying, "We were going to be in the air for 10 minutes and would never have got a 1,000-foot roll on, as that would give us a maximum of 4 minutes of flying. So we needed to shoot digital." Now, they had utilized both digital and film cameras in the past, but eventually all of their crazy plans for the film made that virtually impossible. As more ideas were formed, they canceled out film. So for practicality, we needed to go digital, which is also an amazing option now. But in this case, it would actually make Taggart's job a little bit easier. He really wanted to stick to the franchise's trend of having each film feel very different, and on his end, that meant giving it a bit of a different vibe from a cinematography perspective. There were great opportunities on Mission 7, the desert, Venice at night, Rome, and I tried to keep each away from being too theatrical. I wanted to break it into sections, giving the safe house a moodier look and the submarine sequences a period feel. As every DP wants to do a Lawrence of Arabia in their own way, there was also great satisfaction in the scenes captured in Abu Dhabi that allowed us to explore the natural desert look. That look would take shape in the form of the Sony Venice, a camera he had never used before, and with old anamorphic glass that he would use to soften out the digital look. Finally, on September 6th, 2020, Mission Impossible would begin filming its first scene of the entire movie. And yes, it was the motorcycle stunt scene, which is a pretty epic way to start filming.
We've been working on this for years. We're going to shoot it in Norway. There would be a motorcycle jump off a cliff into a base jump. Wanted to do it since I was a little kid. It all comes down to one thing: the audience.
And that audience's ever watchful eye demanded something bigger and bolder, and they certainly found their big trailer piece right here with the stunt. But while it may seem simple to just jump a bike off of a ramp and pull a chute and fly down a mountain, Tom actually had to set up training with multiple different experts, from motorbiking to base jumping to training in the sport of speed flying.
For base training, advanced skydive training, a lot of canopy skills, a lot of tracking.
Tom Cruise, he's an amazing individual. You tell him something and he just locks it in.
And Cruise wasn't the only person who needed to lock in for this stunt, as the production team needed to make sure they could capture this crazy stunt in the safest and best way possible, getting in their practice runs right alongside Cruise's training, utilizing Z-cams for some of the really close-up shots.
Coming up with the stunt is only one of the technical challenges. The other is putting a camera in a place that you can see where Tom is doing it. Finding the right lens, the right platform, the right medium. Even 2 years ago, the cameras didn't exist.
Now, there are some problems that those of you who have watched this entire series so far are probably aware of by now, namely weather conditions and how they could impact the jump. Luckily, during the training, the production team would carefully track Cruise's jumping by attaching a GPS chip to him and taking careful weather data to understand how to get a consistent and safe shot.
And by doing this multiple times, we were able to get a consistent set of data,
so that each take we can see what height I am, so this way we can set drones and cameras in places where I can go right into close-up.
Preparation was key for these stunts, as the fewer times you had to repeat the stunt, the better for everyone involved. Now, with all of the preparation complete, it was time to finally do it for real on top of a mountain in Norway, a place the production team had experience filming in, as in just the last film, they had to build an entire media village on top of a remote ledge. And just like the previous film, they too would have to fly everything in by helicopter, taking months to construct the pieces for the stunt. And it all had to be precisely built to specifications based on their initial testing. Any deviation from that could prove fatal for Cruise.
The challenge is finding the cameras, it's the amount of preparation, and then it's weather.
You want the light to be right, you want the clouds to be right, misty but not foggy. This weather right here is exactly what we're looking for.
With the right weather conditions in place, Cruise would get ready for the craziest jump of his life. And while you might think that this first take was pretty much perfect, what do you think Cruise's first thoughts were upon landing on the ground?
Thanks, mate. I think I can hold to the bike a little longer.
And likely, just for the fun of it, especially for him, he would do the stunt a total of 6 times that day. Now, even though this stunt went amazingly well and no one got hurt, it wouldn't keep the production from running into other problems outside of their control. The production faced numerous challenges, primarily due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The film's budget escalated to approximately $290 million due to mounting setbacks and constantly evolving safety protocols and filming schedules. This caused financial strain with co-producer Skydance, who refused to cover any overages, and cast a lot of doubt on whether or not the movie would actually be finished. Eventually, Paramount went to come in to absorb those additional costs, though. The film's director, Christopher McQuarrie, and star Tom Cruise would feel immense pressure to complete the movie and avoid further delays, leading to Cruise's well-publicized on-set outburst regarding COVID-19 safety measures.
That's it! No apologies. You can tell it to the people that are losing their homes. because our industry is shut down.
Even further down in the production, they would encounter another controversy in Poland, where they had planned to blow up a historic bridge for a stunt scene, which sparked outrage among the local community and historical preservation groups, and they were eventually forced to relocate the explosive sequence. But though they were forced to relocate for that train sequence, that didn't keep them from pulling off the insane stunt. Did you enjoy the train-related stunts in the first Mission Impossible movie? Then maybe you'll like the train sequence of Dead Reckoning. Now, the train sequence is just one of multiple awe-inspiring stunt-ridden parts from this movie, one that involved much action, but also a lot of visual effects, making it have more things in common with the first train sequence in the series than you may expect. It needs to be said again and again, visual effects are an important part of this movie series, with Dead Reckoning clocking in at around 3,700 VFX shots. And just to put this into perspective, that is more VFX shots made during the production of this movie than Avatar: The Way of Water, which clocked in at around 3,250 VFX shots. Of course, the computer-generated imagery of Avatar was on a completely different qualitative scale when compared to Mission Impossible. But this high number is quite telling of the fact that green screens, cleanups, and digital reconstructions are not just an option, but a necessity, especially when taking the insanity that is Mission Impossible's schedule and ever-evolving creation process into account. Much of the train sequence was kind of cobbled together. It was filmed in various locations, with the first Norway's mountainous geography dictating the look and feel of the sequence, and they would do a lot of filming in this setting.
We were given permission to use this railway line in Norway.
We eventually found Rauma, this amazing valley.
It gave us a playground to operate in that was absolutely extraordinary.
And on the flip side, the VFX artists were behind the scenes, creating test renders after test renders, which further increased crews and the team's confidence that they could achieve even more with the sequence. Meaning a lot of the parts of the sequence would eventually become CGI. While many recordings and materials were made on top of a train cart and there really was choreographed action on the roof of the train, in reality, only a relatively small portion of the train was real, and much of the environment was added and adjusted after the fact. As the movie's production progressed, the train sequence developed into an ever more elaborate beast, one that would embrace digital and visual effects more and more, to the point where Tom Cruise would at times end up being the only real thing within a shot. The many artists working on this movie ended up proving themselves and being able to achieve photoreal results, not just outside of the train, but inside too. Anything from dust, debris, and grease splatter, it was a mix of practical and digital. The digital constructions and enhancements, while oftentimes a bit fantastical, were based on real structures and footage. The exploding bridge, for instance, was based off of a real bridge in Norway, yet it was repositioned and modified. In the end, while a lot of work was done in post, it doesn't detract from what was achieved on location. After all, the green screen shots and enhancements could only turn out that good thanks to the massive amounts of reference material that was collected for the film. In the end, they really did run around on a train for real, even sending in cameramen, setting up camera cranes and flying helicopters around the train cart to film as much as they could, and finally going the extra mile and rebuilding portions of the train that they could do anything that they pleased with. And you know, I don't know how much they included in the film of this, but they did actually, drive a train off of a cliff. To round out this crazy production, we would get, at least in my mind, the best cinema experience of the whole movie with this 20-minute car chase through Rome. And honestly, the Rome setting was a really good choice for this, even if it was a difficult one, as the cobblestone roads made it very unpredictable for stunt drivers.
Every time you think you're going in one direction, the streets say, no, you're not, you're going this way. Getting street closures is very, very difficult. As soon as I saw how challenging it was to shoot in, I knew this was the place to do it.
You definitely have to give some props to the director here, deliberately choosing to do it in a location that was difficult to actually shoot the scene he wanted to do. But McQuarrie just couldn't stop there and decided to create even more challenges for the stunt, with Tom Cruise's character getting handcuffed to another person, only allowing him to be able to use one hand to drift through the streets of Rome.
It added a certain unpredictability to the sequence.
Tom is driving and drifting one-handed through the streets of Rome.
It's extremely dangerous and involves a lot of skill on Tom's part.
But the director had yet to find the full depths of his madness at making things difficult and added a souped-up Fiat 500 to the scene that the actors could barely control.
Okay. Yeah.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Again, here we can see the use of the Z cameras, which were used for the cliff jumping scenes as well. This time embedded into the car to capture as many angles as they could to minimize the amount of retakes required for these stunts. All in all, probably one of the best scenes in the entire film.
I don't think we could have made a sequence that was more difficult to shoot if I had gone out of my way to do it. It has really amazing results.
Yeah, we noticed. What better way to end this story than with a little bit of Christopher Nolan drama?
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself.
The initial release of Mission Impossible 7 was originally slated for July 23, 2021, of course being scheduled prior to the pandemic. Eventually it was shifted back to November 19, 2021, then to May 27, 2022, and then to September 30, 2022, before finding its final release date on July 14, 2023, just a week shy of being delayed for over 2 years. And the placing of this release date caused an unforeseen issue, as it was so close to two other major summer movies, Oppenheimer and Barbie. This meant that Mission Impossible would only get to use IMAX screens for a week before the release of Oppenheimer. The reason why? Because Christopher Nolan used IMAX film cameras to make his movie. And I mean, come on, IMAX is gonna say no to Christopher Nolan at this point. And while Mission Impossible used the digital ready for IMAX cameras, the Sony Venice and Z-Cam, it didn't matter. With such close release schedules, they had little choice but to yield the limited IMAX theaters over to Christopher Nolan's movie. And the reason why this matters is because there is a slight uptick in prices for IMAX, meaning you can make some extra money over traditional theater showings. And a lot of people thought that this is really what caused Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning to get hammered at the box office. And while the film was widely praised by critics and audiences alike, and even though it made $571.1 million at the box office, that total just wasn't enough to cover the massive amounts of money that went into making this film due to COVID and all the production restrictions and setbacks. But luckily for Mission Impossible fans, they were already working on the 8th and potential final installment for the franchise. And you can watch the story of that production right here.